What's going on, basketball fans? Welcome back to another episode of the NBA Talk Podcast for the week of December the 19th to December the 26th. I'm your host, Hani, and in this episode of the podcast, we are discussing our main story, which is George Karl and how he actually, in his new book, insults a lot of his former players. And we're going to be talking about why he said some of this stuff and some of the reactions he got from his former players, and just we get into this scenario and how bad it was and how disgusted I was about this. We're also going to be talking about some of the new CBA and how they actually are going to become, the NBA actually is going to become the first league to offer medical benefits to retired players. So we're going to talk about why this was, whether this was a good idea or a bad idea, that kind of stuff. We're also going to be talking about how the new CBA is going to include a new medical panel that could eventually decide the future of Chris Bosh and his playing career. We're also going to be talking about a bunch of trade rumors going around, including some from the Orlando Magic who are looking to trade Nikola Vucevic and Elfrid Payton. We're also going to be talking about the Bucks and how they're still looking to trade Greg Monroe, how the Suns and how the Sacramento Kings are actually interested in Brandon Knight, and how Will Barton and how he hopes to remain with the Denver Nuggets. We're also going to be talking about how the Detroit Pistons are actually going to plan to retire Richard Hamilton's jersey this season. And finally, we're going to be talking about Jared Sullinger and his approximate return to the Toronto Raptors. So, without any further ado, let's get started. So George Karl, ex-NBA coach George Karl pens bitter tell-all book blasting former players. So George Karl was once an NBA head coach. He wasn't a good NBA coach, even with top talent like Carmelo Anthony. So Karl was fired from every NBA coaching job he ever had. Now, the sorry ex-NBA coach is releasing a tell-all book about his days of coaching players who were better served under better coaches. And his upcoming book, Furious George, due out in January, Karl takes pot shots at just about every player he coached. Karl, who coached the Denver Nuggets in the 2000s, blasted former players Carmelo Anthony, J.R. Smith, and Kenyon Martin. He called the trio a bunch of AAU babies, like the spoiled brats you see in junior golf and junior tennis, according to the New York Post, which got an advance copy of the book. I'm gonna stop right there. Seriously? You're gonna call them AAU babies? You are aware, George, that they're still in the NBA and you're not. There's a reason for that. Just putting that out there. The low blows don't stop there. Karl, who coached Anthony from 2005 to 2011, also lambasted the power forward's work ethic and willingness to share the spotlight. This was from George Karl, what he said. Carmelo was a true conundrum for me in the 6 years I had him. He was the best offensive player I ever coached. He was also a user of people, addicted to the spotlight, and very unhappy when he had to share it. Karl continued, he really lit my fuse with his low demand of himself on defense. He had no commitment to the hard, dirty work of stopping the other guy. My ideal, probably every coach's ideal, is when your best player is also your leader. But since Carmelo only played hard on one side of the ball, he made it plain he couldn't lead the Nuggets, even though he said he wanted to. Coaching him meant working around his defense and compensating for his attitude. And as if that wasn't enough, Karl took aim at the fact that Martin and Anthony grew up without fathers in their lives. Kenyon and Carmelo carried two big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. It didn't take long for players to react, with many taking to social media to blast the coward coach for trying to remain relevant with a new book. And here's some of Kenyon Martin's tweets about the situation. The nerve of an awful and coward-ass coach. More to come. I didn't have a father growing up. We all know that. What's George Karl accused for being a terrible person? Damn. Everyone that's played for that awful person and coach can't stand the ground he walks on. Reggie Evans also commented on this. I had some good Denver Nuggets teammates. That dude is old and unhappy with themselves. Still trying to be relevant, just sad. That's from J.R. Smith. Basically, the scenario right now is George Karl, he's introducing a new book, which is titled Furious George. And apparently, there is a leaked excerpt of this book that are, quoting that George Karl completely insults his former players, in which, in the article that we just read, were Carmelo Anthony, Kenyon Martin, and J.R. Smith. So first of all, my first reaction to his first quote, which was about Melo's work ethic and things like that, my reaction was, seriously? Seriously? You're gonna call your franchise player out about not being a leader? Or what exactly did he say? No, what exactly did the idiot say? He said, well, the true conundrum. He was addicted to the spotlight and very unhappy. Seriously, bro? This is your franchise player you're talking about here. He was the best player on your team every year you coached, and you're insulting this guy. He's the reason you had any success as a head coach. Just letting that out there, Karl. And as far as Melo hogging the spotlight, in those Denver teams, who was there with him? Seriously, who was there with Carmelo Anthony when he was in Denver from 2005 to 2011? Nobody. Nobody was on those teams to help Melo. So of course he's going to take the spotlight. Of course he's going to be the superstar offensively. He's going to be a little bit selfish offensively. Because who else is going to pass the ball to? Nobody else can do shit. So the fact that you're blaming this guy, you're insulting this guy for doing what a superstar should do for his shit team, and that's lead them, you're saying, oh, he was selfish. He always hogged the spotlight. No. The spotlight was on him because there was nobody else to put it on. It was only Carmelo. So that's number one. Number two is, that his offense and his defense, and how George Karl was actually, blasting him for his defense, his lack of defense. Seriously. The Nuggets were pretty shit back then. And the fact that you're playing for a shit team, you're not going to be motivated to play defense when you know the outcome of your game. You know you're going to lose. You know that you're going to get beaten. So what's the point? I wouldn't want to play defense with that team. I don't think Melo cared. Because he's just well, if this coach won't show us anything, it won't lead us, if he's not gonna do shit, management isn't getting me players who I can play with, then why should I try? I think that was Melo's attitude. So, the fact that he didn't play defense, well, can you blame him? Can you blame him for not playing defense? And another thing to add on to this defense point, you exert so much energy playing on offense. And when you're the superstar, you're playing all the offense. You get all the touches, all the shots. So how much energy do you have left to play defense? You gotta compensate for that too. The fact that he's getting, ripped, he's getting shot at for that, is very sad. It's very annoying. It's very frustrating because he had no control over this. He legit was the only option in Denver. He was legit the best player on the team, and yet he's still being criticized for it. And I legit find it disgusting. I find it very atrocious, But what really crossed the line for me, what really got me really pissed off when I was reading this, and a lot of other people pissed off as well, was the fact that Karl insulted a man or men for not having a father. Seriously. And I'll read the quote for you guys again. He said, Kenyon and Carmelo carry two big burdens, all that money and no father to show them how to act like a man. Seriously? You're gonna legit talk about a man's family? You're gonna talk about probably one of the worst moments of their life. And Melo lost his dad to cancer. So Melo lost his dad unintentionally without any control over it. It's not like Melo's dad died in a shot, or being in a gunshot or a bad drug deal. Melo's dad died from a terrible disease, a terrible illness that has killed many. So Melo had zero control over this, and you're blaming Melo for not having a dad, and that he was irresponsible with money and finances and things like that? Like, seriously? Like, I don't know about you, but I find that very offensive. I find that very offensive from George Karl. Kenyon Martin literally went off. I mean, I'm just very respectful that Carmelo Anthony showed a little bit more class. He showed a little bit more, respect, letting it go. But I don't think this guy took it, I think this guy took it personally. Because when you talk about a man's family, you make this personal. And when you make something personal, it's never good. George Karl literally pissed me off here. Because it's one thing to say that stuff to a man's face, but it's another thing to say it indirectly in a book. Like, you saying it indirectly in a book to him that's read by millions of people, and you're calling him out on this. Seriously. Overall, man, I find these comments that George Karl made very, very stupid, very, outrageous, very idiotic, illogical. I just feel that this guy seriously was not thinking, or he was high when he was writing this book. Because clearly, he does not know the meaning of the media and what it can do to a player or to yourself. Because he does not know that. Because he just embarrassed not only himself, the Denver Nuggets organization, and three players that he coached. And he's still going. He's still saying stupid stuff in his book. They're still being uncovered. Apparently in the book, he said, another thing that he recently just said, is that most NBA players are on, I believe it was steroids or something like that. Or steroids. Or PEDs. Like, what? Where do you get this stuff from? And why would you say that in a book? Seriously. If I had to give any advice to George Karl right now, it would be to burn your book. Every single copy, burn it. Because it will legit get you into so much more trouble. You thought the Donald Sterling stuff was bad? Think about it. Think about who's next in line. That's how bad I think it's gonna get if George Karl, if there is more stuff in there that is as bad as this, oof, man, we're gonna have a Donald Sterling part 2, people. But overall, man, this is a very disgusting way to start this podcast, but this is the biggest story of the week. This was something that a lot of people were talking about, and it got a lot of people, very aggravated, very annoyed, just at the fact that George Karl, out of all people, would say this stuff about players. But what can you do? You can't do anything about it. Until George Karl comes clean, you can't say anything to George Karl. So, overall, this was absolutely disgusting in my opinion, and, I don't want to talk about this again. So we're gonna move on now to a sort of a lighthearted topic, a topic that I actually really enjoy right now. The NBA to become the first league to offer medical benefits to retired players. So the NBA will become the first professional sports league to offer retired players medical benefits as part of a comprehensive and enhanced player retirement package. That was kind of a big point for us, to be able to give back to retired players. This was from Carmelo Anthony, who told ESPN concerning the recent collective bargaining agreement negotiations. Every league sees what happens to retired players after a certain period of time, but for us to be able to take care of those guys, I know how much it means to them. Starting on January 1st, the NBA and NBA Player Association will equally fund a new health insurance plan, education/career development program, and an increase in pension benefits for retired players. Previously, players who retired from the NBA received a pension from the league, but were responsible for their own health insurance. The sudden heart-related deaths of Daryl Dawkins and Moses Malone in 2015 led Adam Silver to call Michelle Roberts about addressing this issue in their new CBA talks. Michael Jordan also played a big role in stressing the importance of this issue. Malone's and Dawkins' deaths, this from Jordan, sent shockwaves through the whole basketball universe, said Dwight Davis, who played for the Cavaliers and Warriors in the late 1970s and now serves as the vice chairman for the National Basketball Retired Players Association. Some of the deaths of retired players could have been avoidable because these guys didn't have insurance and weren't doing yearly checkups. This is the first time in professional sport that this has happened. Davis added, of the NBA providing medical benefits for retired players and their families. What it means dollar-wise for a guy like me who is 67, steadily employed for a while. On Medicare, with this new plan, I'm going to save thousands of dollars in copays, a minimum of $4,000 to $5,000 a year. Some of my younger counterparts are guys in their 40s. Some of those guys are paying $30,000 a year for health insurance for themselves and families because of pre-existing injuries. The abuse our bodies take, it is hard to get affordable insurance as a retired player. So basically, what this article was saying is saying that they're going to start giving retired players medical benefits, increase their pension, educational benefits, just give them some added incentives of being a retired player. You know, you retired, you played your season, you put so much into the league feels that they should pay you back, they should give you something back. That's really what this is. And, you know, I love it. I love the idea about it. You know, mainly because basketball is a physical sport. It's a sport that literally involves a lot of contact, a lot of physicality, and a lot of, you know, stress on your body. You know, and, you know, players get banged up. Even after you get retired, you retire, you're gonna have some nagging injuries. You may or may not have the money to afford insurance, afford to pay for things like medical, to pay for things like education. You know, you may not have that money because you're retired, you're not earning an income anymore. So, the fact that the NBA is saying, you know what, we're gonna pay you back for your services, this is what you've done for us, we're gonna do this for you, we're gonna take care of you since you took care of us. That's sort of what it is. And quite honestly, I love it. I love it. It's a great look for the NBA in general because this is the first sports league to ever do this. So I think it's a great look for the league. I think it will make the league look a lot better because it shows that they care about their players. They care about their athletes. Players who come into the NBA are treated like royalty because this is the top league, this is the top quality players. And when you give everything you have for the league, they are going to repay you. And that's a great look. You know, when it comes to other leagues, you know, they're going to be looking at this saying, you know what? The NBA is doing a good thing right now. The NBA, look at them. They're doing something big. You know, it gets people talking good things about the NBA. It also shows how the NBA wants to, you know, give back to the players that made the league great. You know, players like Magic, Bird, Jordan, these guys made the league great, made the league what it is today. And the NBA is saying, you know what, we're gonna pay you guys back. We're gonna, you know, give back to you guys what you guys gave to us. But finally, what I think the best part about this is that it will truly help smaller, you know, retired NBA players. NBA players who obviously weren't the biggest names, but, you know, were still players, who still serve the league. You know, I feel this will benefit them because they may not have that money to do these things like medical procedures and whatnot. And this is what help them because this will help them to maintain their health, to give them more life, to keep them alive, sort of maintain them and take care of them. That's what this is all about, and I truly enjoy it. And this also means that retired players can retire with a lot more comfortably. You know, they can say, you know what, I'm going to retire because I know the league will take care of me if I retire. I don't have to worry about working a lot more years to, you know, earn enough income to support myself and my family. The league will take care of me. I know I can retire whenever I want to retire, whenever I feel it's my time. And I think that's a great thing for players, especially in the players now, because instead of risking their life, trying to earn some more income and trying to, you know, get more playing and risking their future health, they can retire knowing that the NBA is going to take care of them and they're going to have the necessary funds to maintain themselves for the future. And I think that's a great thing. But overall, I love this idea. I love the concept of it. I love what it does for players, and what it is for the future and the look it gives to the NBA as a whole. But overall, I love the idea and I love this direction that the NBA is going with the new CBA. So speaking of the new CBA and some medical issues, we're going to talk about Chris Bosh and how the new CBA is to include a new medical panel that could decide Bosh's future. So the standoff between Chris Bosh and the Miami Heat could be decided by the new collective bargaining agreement. As of right now, there is no system in place making a ruling on a case such as Bosh's, but the upcoming CBA will seek to break the future deadlocks by introducing an independent medical panel to settle life and death cases, according to Howard Beck of Bleacher Report. Cases can be referred to the panel by teams, the league, or the Players Association. The decision to hear Bosh's case, however, rests solely in his hands since his condition predates the new CBA agreement. The panel could either make one or two rulings. It could either determine that the player has a life-threatening condition in which that player would be barred from playing from the NBA, or the panel could rule that teams are unfairly barring a player from playing, then compel teams to either play, trade, or waive the player in question. Bosh has been silent since February 9th after a reoccurrence of blood clotting, but he and the Heat have been at odds about his playing future. Bosh declared that he wanted to make a comeback, but the Heat redoubled their decision to withhold Bosh after a preseason physical discovered more signs of blood clotting. The 32-year-old former All-Star is still under contract with the Heat through 2019. So, as we all know, Chris Bosh is still trying to make an NBA comeback. He had blood clots and, now he wants to come back to the NBA. I have a whole video on talking about, should he retire or should he not retire. So check that video out. There'll be a card around here or there'll be a link in the description down below if you guys want to check that video out. But Bosh wanted to come back after the serious condition that he had of blood clots. However, under the new CBA, Bosh may not be able to do that anymore. He may not have a choice because the new CBA is going to be including a new medical panel. And what this panel is, it's basically an independent group of people who are going to take Bosh's case and say, you know what, either A, your situation is very life-threatening, you are not allowed to play in the NBA ever again, you must retire, or B, if this is a team issue, so let's say a team is not letting this player play, even though the player is healthy, then this panel can force the team to either play this player, trade this player, or waive this player. So, yeah, overall, this means that Bosh will not have a choice whether or not his career will be over or not, because if this case goes to that panel, well, he won't have a choice anymore, because this panel can look at the situation and decide for Bosh. So, it's a bad thing for Bosh. But personally, I think Bosh should retire. I think that he should not risk his health. I think he should maintain his health and stop trying to focus on, something that he knows will hurt him in the future rather than save himself now. But, that's not me. But overall, I like the new policy as it will prevent players from risking their future lives for playing. Like, I get that players want to play, they want to earn their money, they want to be successful. But if it's risking your future health, I say it's not worth it. And I think the NBA is seeing that now, that we can't keep having players do this and risk their lives. We gotta draw the line somewhere. We gotta legit, if they can't make the responsible decision, we're gonna take the matters in our hands and make the decision. And I love the policy. I love that the NBA is saying, you know what, enough is enough. We're gonna now take control of this situation. And that's a great thing now for the NBA, because it's bad as fans to see players, suffer through injuries or life or death scenarios just because they continue playing more and they risk their own lives because of their own stupid decisions. But overall, I like the policy and I like the way the NBA is going. I like some of these new CBA deals because they are truly benefiting the players, they're benefiting the athletes, and they're making sure that to put the athletes first as the primary rather than a secondary, which is a great thing for the players and for the fans, because the more the players are better, the more better games we have, the better quality we have when it comes to the NBA. But overall, I love the new policy. and I think it will truly benefit the NBA in the future. So now we're going to get into some of the trade rumors. So the Orlando Magic looking to trade Vucevic, and they're actually down on Payton. So talks of change are brewing within the Orlando Magic's organization, which could lead to one or both of the team's former starting point guard and center being shown the door sooner rather than later. Orlando is reportedly looking to trade center Nikola Vucevic, according to ESPN's Brian Windhorst. The team is also very much down on Elfrid Payton at the moment, and it looks like he could be on the chopping block as well. Vucevic was moved to the second unit at the end of last month, a decision he wasn't particularly on board with, but ultimately accepted and played through in his new role. The 26-year-old big man has maintained his strong production with near double-double of 13.5 points and 8.6 rebounds, along with 3.4 assists and 0.9 assists in 27.9 minutes over his last 10 appearances. The offseason addition of both Serge Ibaka and Bismack Biyombo were the writing on the wall that Vucevic was either going to have to deal with fewer minutes or be dangled as a trading chip to improve the other areas on the roster. Payton also found himself getting demoted to the bench in favor of veteran DJ Augustine. Nonetheless, his play as of late could buy him some good will as far as not being traded. He's been contributing 15.3 points at 51.6% shooting, 6.9 assists, and 3.9 rebounds over the last 8 games. Orlando ranks 25th overall in 3-point shooting, and with Augustine starting, the team has someone manning the point who can stretch the floor and knock down shots from deep at an efficient rate. Unlike the younger Payton, Vucevic is locked until the end of the 2018-2019 campaign, while he'll max out his current contract at $12.75 million. Payton, on the other hand, is still working under the rookie scale. I said this in my offseason preview, and I said this in my the top 5 worst teams I predicted in the NBA, and the Orlando Magic was one of them. Why? Because they clearly had no idea what they were doing when they were making their offseason moves. You know, and now they're starting to realize that, oh my god, our roster is terrible. And it's coming at the expense of Vucevic. Vucevic is a great player, in my opinion. I think he's probably one of the best, centers in the game right now. He has a great post-up game. He's got a nice jump shot. And he's a solid defender too. Last year he actually had a breakout season. He averaged 18 points and got 9 rebounds for the team. And he's at the age of 25. This guy's very young too. He was set to become the future of the Orlando Magic. But because of the new addition of Biyombo and Ibaka, this guy literally lost all his minutes. His numbers dropped, and now he's barely being utilized by the team. And I feel this is bad for him, because now, if he's not being used on this team, what's the point of keeping him? What's the point of keeping this guy on this team when you're not going to use him? So I think the best thing for him and Orlando is to trade him. Trade him for some guard depth, because you literally have no guard depth, and you need that. You have so many big men that you don't have anybody up front to play the guard spot. And that's a problem. That's a problem for this team. As this team needs to fix their roster. Seriously, they need to fix their roster. And I think this is a great way. Vucevic still has a lot of value, so you can go out and get a quality player or some picks out of him. So why not do it? Why not get a quality player out of Vucevic rather than wasting him away on your bench? That's just my way of thinking about it. As far as Payton goes, he's been pretty average as a starter. He's been averaging 12 points and 6 assists. But he's still a quality player. I'll give him that. So I think the best thing for Orlando to do with Payton, is to hold on to him until if you get a blockbuster deal. If you get a deal you cannot refuse, then obviously put Payton in that deal and ship Payton out. But as far as that's concerned, you can keep Payton just as long as unless you get a great deal. But overall, I just feel that Orlando seriously needs to fix their roster, because clearly they have so many issues on that roster that they haven't even thought about fixing and addressing, which now they're realizing that we need to fix our roster because we need to win games, But overall, man, this is a mess. And I've said this, I called this from day one of the offseason to when they signed Biyombo and Ibaka. About how was this going to work? And clearly it was a complete utter failure, and I think they're not realizing this now. They're not realizing that maybe they should have watched my video. Maybe they should have realized that, oh, we were idiots during the offseason. So we're going to move on now to the Bucks and how they're still looking to deal Greg Monroe. So the trade chatter surrounding the Milwaukee Bucks big man Greg Monroe has quieted down so that the Bucks stopped DNP-CDing him. But that doesn't mean the team's given up on the notion of unloading him. The Bucks are still searching for a trade partner for the expensive reserve. A source told Jerry Wolfeld, that's a weird name, of the Racing Journal Times. It's easy to understand why, even his recent uptick in floor time, Monroe is making $17 million just to play just 19.3 minutes per game this season and has a $17.9 million player option for 2018. That said, he has been excellent captaining Bucks' second unit with per 36 minutes averages of 17 points, 12 rebounds, and 4 assists and 2 steals. The move to the bench has been a fruitful one for the 26-year-old who started all but 12 games in his 4 previous seasons before signing with Milwaukee in the summer of 2015. He's posting a career high in PER, 22.3 PER, and a team best plus 10.3 net rating. And the Bucks have been 12 points per 100 possessions better with him on the floor. The Bucks reportedly had Monroe trade talks with both the Kings and the Hornets back in October. Now you see, this is something that is very weird. You can do this either way. Either one, you trade this guy now and get the value for him now and try to get somebody who can help your team right away. Because clearly this guy isn't what you're looking for. He's not the guy who fits well on your roster. Or B, you keep him on your roster and you utilize him as a bench guy. Clearly he's doing a lot better than he was as a starter. And if you really want him on the team, that's his best role. You're gonna have to keep him like that. But I think based on his contract and how much money he's making and where this team wants to go, I think the best scenario for Greg Monroe is to be traded. I think he should be dealt. I think the Bucks need somebody else who's a lot cheaper, who's younger, who's just fits the Bucks system better. I think Greg is a great player. He's a solid player, but I don't think he fits what the Bucks system and what this team is trying to implement. So overall, I mean, Greg Monroe's been playing great. He's been playing well, but he needs to get into a fresh environment. He needs to be in a scenario where he's gonna fit into the lineup rather than the Bucks where he looks kind of out of place. He looks out of sorts in that lineup, but overall, I just feel that he should be traded, and that's something that this team should be doing. We're also going to be talking about Brandon Knight and how he could end up becoming a Sacramento King. According to ESPN's Brian Windhorst, was a guest on Thursday's The Low Post podcast. During the 65 minutes with Zach Lowe, many NBA topics were discussed, including some trade rumors from the league. One of the rumors brought up by Windhorst includes the Sacramento Kings and Phoenix Suns. It's hard to read Sacramento. Sacramento talks a lot, but then they never do anything. So Sacramento is very frustrating to people, Windhorst said. I know that Sacramento has been talking to Phoenix about Brandon Knight since the summer. Will that ultimately get down? I don't know. But it's out there. There has been speculation that Phoenix may trade Knight since he prefers to be a starter, even though he has said that he's accepting his role this season as the first guard off the bench behind the starting duo of Eric Bledsoe and Devin Booker. Last month, Suns general manager Ryan McDonough told a local radio station that he had no plans to deal Knight. We're certainly not looking to move Brandon. We haven't been close to trading Brandon, McDonough said. I think he'd love to be starting, and we understand that he's accepting the role very well. I think you guys will see him go through on a run here. Most teams are struggling like this season, and how many executives around the NBA believe The Suns and Kings are among many clubs that will likely make trades by the February 23rd deadline. Knight is owed $56.5 million through 2019 to 2020. Through 29 appearances, the 25-year-old guard is averaging 24.3 minutes, 13 points per game, 2.7 rebounds, and 2.9 assists. Windhorst did mention that he wasn't sure Bledsoe is a point guard and that could lower his trade value around the league. If other NBA executives agree with that sentiment, the Kings may not want to lock in a point guard long-term via trade this season, so Darren Collison and Ty Lawson can leave for nothing in July as free agents. From this article, the one thing I get from this is that I think the Kings should go for Brandon Knight. I think that the Kings need a point guard. They need somebody to run the show. And I think Brandon Knight is that guy. He's a very talented player. He's a guy who's very underrated in the NBA. And I think the Kings should go after him. I think they should try to get this guy because he's a guy who they need. They need a starter. And Brandon Knight, he needs to start. This guy is too good to be coming off the bench. Like, I get that Phoenix paid this guy a lot of money, and he's a good part of, he has a great role in Phoenix. But this guy wants to be a starter. You know, in his heart, he wants to be a starter. He wants to be the main guy on the floor. And I think by bringing him into a scenario with Sacramento, where they need a point guard, they need a guy to run the show, I think it's going to be a great role for Brandon. Because he'll have a place to shine. He'll be paired with a great all-star buddy with DeMarcus Cousins. So I think it'll be a great thing for Brandon to do. But will it happen? I have no clue. I don't think so, just because Phoenix wants to keep him. Phoenix knows that he's the spark plug off the bench. But it could happen. It definitely could happen. And I think it should happen because it makes a lot more sense. It will help both teams out in the end. So that's just what it goes through as far as Brandon Knight. I just think he should be traded, but we'll wait and see about that. We've got a couple more here. So the Pistons to retire Richard Hamilton's jersey on February 26th. The Detroit Pistons announced that the club will honor and retire the jersey for Richard Hamilton during the 2016-17 season. Hamilton will be honored during a halftime ceremony on Sunday, February 26th at 6 p.m. when the Pistons host the Boston Celtics at the Palace. Our franchise has a great legacy, and it's important to recognize the players who made our organization successful both on and off the court, said Pistons owner Tom Gores. Rip's numbers speak for themselves. He was a top performer year in and year out, from the regular season through the playoffs, and especially during the championship run in 2004. He was relentless on the court and equally passionate about his teammates and community. We were excited to honor his success. Hamilton spent 9 seasons with Detroit, 2002 to 2011, leading the Pistons in scoring during 8 of those 9 seasons. He's just one of 6 players in Pistons franchise history to reach 11,000 point plateau, and one of 5 players to score 50 plus points in game 5 in a game. 51 in New York during his tenure. The club made 6 consecutive trips to the Eastern Conference Finals, 2003 to 2008, 2 trips to Hamilton, trips to the Eastern Conference Finals, 2 trips to the NBA Finals, and won the NBA Championship in 2004. Hamilton was also named to an NBA All-Star in the 3 consecutive seasons from 2005 to 8 in 631 games as a Piston. The Coatesville, Pennsylvania native averaged 18.4 points per game, 3.4 rebounds, and 3.8 assists per game, and ranked 6th in points and free throws, and made field goals 7 in assists, minutes, and 3-point field goals made, and 10th in 7 played in franchise history. Detroit is where I celebrate the great achievement in my pro basketball career, and to be recognized by the organization in this way, I'm honored, said Hamilton. I look forward to sharing this experience with all the fans who supported me throughout my years as a Piston, and look forward to celebrating the Palace for one final time. Yes, sir. I like this. I'm a big fan of former teams sort of giving back to some of the players who made them special. And I think Rip Hamilton made Detroit special. He was a big factor for that championship team, because without him, they would legit have no offense, because obviously a lot of their players weren't offensive-minded players. And Rip Hamilton, one of those guys who literally spark-plugged the team and used the team's great defense and turned that momentum into great offense. And that led to some of their success. And I think that the Pistons should reward this guy because he put a lot of work in for their city. He won your city a championship. And the least you can do is thank him for his services by giving him something and sort of, lighten up the room a little bit more, is what I'm trying to say here. But overall, I feel that this is a great move by the Pistons. I think they're doing something really special for Richard Hamilton. And, it's nice to see that players are getting the recognition they deserve after all these years of the service to the team and the franchise that they've worked their asses off to build. But overall, it's a great thing in my opinion. Finally, the last story of today's podcast, of this week's podcast, is Jared Sullinger approximately 1 month away from a return. Jared Sullinger is about 1 month away from returning to the lineup of the Toronto Raptors. Sullinger has been recovering from the surgery on his left foot he underwent in training camp. Sullinger is no longer wearing a walking boot and has been able to put more pressure on the foot. He has been great with his insights. I tell him I would rather have him on the players as the player Sully than the coach Sully. But he has great basketball IQ and some great advice, said Dwayne Casey. When guys are pulling your tail and giving you bull crap, but his stuff is real. Really intelligent insight into who we are playing and how to play certain guys in certain situations that has been very helpful. And it's like I told him that this can help him when he goes on the floor. So now he can think through situations so he has no excuse before he makes a mistake. Overall, I think the Raptors truly need Jared Sullinger back. I think they really need a guy like him to come back and to sort of bolster this lineup and give this lineup a little more stability and a little bit more depth. But, if he's not available right now, the Raptors are right now on some success. So I think Jared should take his time, fully recover, and then come back. I don't think he should rush himself because it's only going to make things worse for him. It's not going to make anything any better. It's going to cause even more injuries and risk his playoff availability as well. So I think he should rest as long as he needs to, until his foot comes 100%, 110%. I would rather not risk anything at all. But he's 1 month away, so hopefully he'll come back stronger than ever and better than ever to help the Raptors to take on the Cavs. So, yeah. Anyways, guys, that was the NBA Talk podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Leave this episode a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel for more podcasts like this. We do a podcast every week. So subscribe to the channel for this channel on YouTube for the video version. We also have an audio version on Podbean. So check the link for the description down below for the audio version of this podcast, which should be going live a little bit shortly or before or after the podcast goes live on YouTube. So stay tuned for that. And as always, guys, I'm Hani from NBA Talk, and I'll see you all in the next video or the next episode of the NBA Talk podcast. Thank you so much for watching.